I I don't know. I just don't know. I want to forget about this, not because it was a pleasant experience, but because I wanted to move on from trying to see if it was actually real. I just want to forget about that memory. Anyways, let me tell you about a show from my childhood. If you grew up around the 80s or 90s, I'm sure you've seen at least a few episodes of the British television series Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, created by Britt Allcroft and David Mitton. Based on the Railway series books by Reverend Wes Audrey and his son Christopher, children across the world have grown up with these delightful and charming characters and their entertaining interactions. If you're reading this, you might be surprised to find out that Britt's Down the Mine Test pilot in 1983 wasn't where the show's run on television officially originated. You see, Thomas and Friends was fourth of all the attempts to adapt Audrey's books to TV. The first was broadcast by the BBC in 1953 as an adaptation of the sad story of Henry from the first book, The Three Railway Engines. This is the well-known story where a big green engine named Henry refuses to leave a tunnel in fear of the rain spoiling his green paint with red stripes, and ends up being left inside the tunnel behind a brick wall, until Gordon the big blue engine burst his safety valve while pulling the express. The pilot used 00 scale Duplo models manufactured by Hornaby and was narrated by Julia Lang. Nothing went wrong until Henry's model derailed and a hand had to put it back on the track on live TV. The incident, being noticed by everyone watching, including Audrey, made headlines within a week, and all this resulted in the next episode's delay and soon cancellation of the show. Attempts to revive the series were unsuccessful. The pilot is now considered lost, with only photographs of the models and a news story of the incident left to prove its existence. In 1970, a man named Ted Ray would read books of the Railway series on a TV show called Jackanory. In the episodes of the Railway series readings from Ted Ray, he would be dressed like an engine driver and would sit inside the signal box, and he would tell stories of the Railway series from 1970 to 1972. These readings are lost now, but there's not information about their existence, except for a page from one of the issues from Radio Times, and the fact that it was mentioned in the Thomas and Tank Engine Man to prove it. In 1973, a musical animated adaptation was proposed by English musician and composer Andrew Lloyd Webber, who read the books when he was a child. The project never went ahead as of 1977, but possibly influenced Webber's rock musical, Starlight Express. It was then in 1983 when the adaptation by Britt Allcroft started production with a successful test pilot, greenlighting production of a children's television series beloved by children from all over the world. Of course, I watched the show myself. I started watching the series when I was much younger, during its run in Australia on ABC Kids. It all started out with Series 1, created in 1984, with the vague memory of Ringo Starr's opening narration of the first episode, Thomas and Gordon. The episode where Thomas keeps teasing Gordon, who gets back at him by pulling him down the line behind the express. I gave up on the show when Series 12 came out, as I was disappointed with its new style where lip sync was applied via the usage of CGI. In recent years, I've been doing a lot of research on the history of both the show and the books. After that, the franchise became more interesting than ever after learning new facts like the real-life steam locomotives that inspired the characters, and the real-life accidents that inspired the books and the episodes and the events. It was also interesting learning about the narrators in both the Kingdom, UK, and the US version, like Ringo Starr, in the UK version from Series 1 to Series 2. Personally, he's my favorite of the narrators, the ex-Beatle, but I don't want to stay off topic. So, let's get to why I'm typing this down. I was scrolling through Facebook, checking updates and notifications and contacting friends. The part where I went into contacts was where this all started. I noticed that a friend of mine named Jerry Walker had changed his profile picture overnight to what looked like a black and white photograph. Upon closer inspection, it looked like a Hornby Doomblow model of Henry behind a brick wall inside a statue. I greeted him as I usually do, and we began chatting about topics, like how we were going, and any plans we had, social media updates, etc. When he asked if there was anything else I wanted to ask him, I sent a question about his new profile picture. He replied saying it was a still from a 1953 BBC adaptation of The Sad Story of Henry. As I mentioned before, I asked him where he found it, and he said it came from an old box that was given to him by his grandfather. I asked him if there was anything else that was in there, and he said there were lots of other junk like old toys, trading cards, and an old cassette labeled The Sad Story of Henry. I got curious and asked him what the footage would look like. He replied saying he never actually watched it. I asked if he could convert it to a WMP file, Windows Media Player, and he said he'd see what he can do. He does videos of VHS openings on YouTube. I sent him a thank you and left to work on my YouTube channel. About 3 to 4 days later, I got a message from Jerry. It was a download link of a file labeled Sad Story of Henry 1953.mp4. And he said that he had no idea what he just watched, suggesting I should just watch it for myself, see if I had a better understanding of it. I thanked him and downloaded the file onto my desktop. I opened it and it started with a 1953 BBC Batwings logo, before cutting abruptly to the first shot of the episode. It was low quality and not very well restored, but it made sense since this is 1953 it came from. The first shot was Henry pulling a passenger train consisting of BR Mk1 coaches, accompanied by Julia Lang saying the opening rhyme, "Once, an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain. It went into a tunnel and squeaked through its funnel and wouldn't come out again." I was prepared for the moment where the model came off the tracks and a hand putting it back on the rails on the camera. And just like that, it happened, as I expected. For 4 minutes, the story went on unchanged from the original story, with the exception of Henry being in his new shape from the Flying Kipper. Henry refuses to leave the tunnel, fearing that the rain would spoil his paint. The passengers try pulling and pushing him out. An engine, which appears to be a Hornby Duplo LMS Coronation class, fails to move him out of the tunnel, and Sir Topham Hatt, the Fat Controller, leaves him in the tunnel behind a brick wall. And it was after Julia Lang said, "He was very sad because he thought no one would ever see his lovely green paint with red stripes again," when things began to seem off. The video stayed on a shot of Henry in the tunnel without anything happening. No trains went through the new tunnel. No sound effects were heard. Not even Lang's narration. When it was starting to make me uncomfortable, I checked the running time of the video, and to my surprise, it was 8 minutes and 43 seconds. Curious to see if there was an adaptation of the Edward Gordon and Henry story that followed, I kept watching, feeling a bit uneasy, as no sources implied that there were scenes based on the last chapter of the book. At the 5:51 mark, it cuts to another angle showing a close-up of Henry's cab, which seemed to have cracked windows. The next shot showed Henry's boiler, which looked like it was covered in dust and soot that was obscuring his green paint with red stripes. The shot that followed was one of Henry's wheels, which racked the coupling rods and pistons. The remainder of the video was a montage compilation of sorts of multiple shots of Henry looking more and more dilapidated and derelict. I began to feel creeped out when it showed a close-up of Henry, who had a face that displayed a look of pain and suffering. Though they were painted on a plastic face, I could see it in his eyes that he was begging for it all to end, though it was very clear his prayers would not be returned, ever. The shot stayed on his face for about 30 seconds, before transitioning to the next shot. But the next shot was the same. But this time, he didn't have a face. It was just a normal smoke box door, which looked so real it looked like an actual photograph from an actual MS Black 5. In fact, I think it was. It looked like a Stanier Class 5 on a siding in an industrial yard, rusted and filthy. Not as if it was on the deadline ready to be broken up, but looked as if it was not well serviced or maintained for months. The last shot in the entire video was a shot of the outside of the tunnel. Or what was in it? With Henry resembling a steam locomotive being broken up with scrap metal. His smoke box door was gone, while an express train, presumably pulled by a Hornby Duplo model of Gordon, rushes through the new tunnel as the shot zooms out and fades to black. Julia Lang's narration returns before the screen turns completely pitch black. And this is what she said. but I think he deserved it. Don't you? The video ended with the 1950s BBC logo, just as it began. I was struggling to comprehend with what I just watched. I tried doing research. I'd looking stuff up. All that showed up in my search was information about the pilot I knew about, not the video Jerry just sent me. Then I tried researching about the story from the original Railway series book, and found out that the book was intended to be a 3-chapter story, ending with the sad story of Henry. Publishers weren't pleased that it ended that way, and Audrey decided to write a 4th story to bring the 3 engines together for a happy ending. Using some of my search results, I told Jerry about what happened. What I thought happened, before he told me that what he believed was the reasoning for those additional 4 minutes of footage. His father, who worked on film and TV programs from the 40s to 50s, working on storyboards of Animal Farm, and was on set for the filming of the sad story. Jerry believes that his grandfather, named Barry, thought that the ending of the book was too kid-friendly, believing it was highly unlikely that the NWR had no other big engines besides Gordon and Henry, and wanted to show a more realistic version based on the unpublished version of the book. Apparently, he filmed the last 4 minutes of the video, after the broadcast ceased for private video after he was allowed to keep the footage. He placed the footage in a cassette in order to keep it as a memory of his work on the set before retiring. Around the time of his death, he passed the tape and some other old junk to his son, Samuel, who eventually gave it to Jerry on his 15th birthday. While the theory was very likely, neither of us seemed to believe whether it was true. I intended to keep it and upload it to YouTube, placing it into a folder labeled videos and stuff. However, while clearing the desktop to save disk space, I got carried away and deleted the folder. I forgot that I placed the video into it. Yeah, I tend to get carried away doing a lot of things, like I intentionally invite interested users to some of my Discord servers while inviting friends. By unfortunate coincidence, Jerry couldn't upload it either, because his account was terminated for copyright violation in his VHS openings. However, Jerry kindly gave me this still for this archive to prove my point. Ever since then, I never looked at the sad story of Henry the same way again. I still rewatch the episode from time to time and look at some readings of the Railway series book and some remakes done by other people and some Trains-made remakes on YouTube. But every time I do, I get that memory of that this exact story happened very differently in a lost 1953 production. I know your POV. I know that your point of view may be that this whole story is false and highly unlikely to have happened. I won't force you to believe me, but I know what happened. I know what I downloaded, and I know what I saw. I just need somebody to help me understand why they make such a train wreck like this.